Welcome back to the fifth and final installment of Andrew Choong's great presentation on the plans of the HMS Cressy.
Despite the modernity of this vessel, all the traditional hazards of ocean voyages were still present, including the ever-present risk of a fire. And while these ships did have some equipment to enable the crew to deal with those fires, it was very primitive and very rudimentary. They were still groping towards the effective firefighting setups that would grace ships later in the 20th century. And so the form that these took were portable fire pumps, which were very easy to rig up and probably the most effective thing. But the Victorians were also beginning to understand the damaging effects of smoke inhalation and the need for men to be able to operate in spaces where there were problems with heat and with poisonous gases. And so right in the middle of this deck, you can see a small locker which is marked helmets, 18 in number. And these are very, very rudimentary fire helmets. You can only really see these sorts of things in museums these days. But the idea was they were supposed to help give the men some ability to continue breathing and operating in a hostile environment where a fire was a problem, and to also give them a chance to see something. So they had the glass-plated eyepieces. Unfortunately, despite being the best that could be produced at the time, they were not very good and arguably not very effective, but they were the best the Navy could supply at the time. And here we have another view of the hand steering compartment on the deck plan. So you can see the four big wheels of the direct steering apparatus, and they've had to be offset to one side in order to accommodate the steam mechanism for the capstan above. You've got the regular steering position with the compass binnacle and its wheel also offset to make room for all the other things that are happening in here. And you can see the floor line is much narrower than that of the top of the compartment. And that is a beautiful illustration of just how much the hull was curving in to accommodate the propeller shafts either side. And I love how they've beautifully picked out all the component parts for the direct acting gear, which then leads straight onto the steering compartment and the really heavy duty components at the rudder head. Cressy was propelled by two triple expansion steam engines, which could drive her when she was new at a speed of slightly over 20 knots. And this was a very, very respectable speed for the turn of the century. And it required an immense amount of power to do it. So not surprisingly, on a big armored cruiser like Cressy, the machinery and propulsion spaces would take up an immense amount of the ship's hull. At her lower decks, it was roughly 3/4 of the space was consumed by the engines, the boilers, and the coal bunkers. If you look closely at the reverse side of these plans and maybe even give them a bit of a feel, you will get a sense of it that it is fabric, and that would be absolutely correct. The Admiralty's way of making these plans incredibly robust and long-lasting is that they'd be drawn on very high-quality cartridge paper, which would then be backed by linen. So when they're rolled up, they are incredibly well protected and they don't slide around too much. They've actually got a good grip on themselves. It also means that when you do have to send these drawings out to, say, a dockyard to inform the maintenance work, or even transfer it to an overseas dockyard, these drawings are robust enough, and they are working drawings to be able to stand the stresses of being manhandled and passed from place to place, sometimes spending a lot of time in transit, and that they just generally will stand the test of time. And when you think about it, these plans, as of my little discussion today, are about 124 years old.